Welcome back. You've joined us on a lovely day, but not in the Bliss Kingdom. In a different palace altogether. The palace of sleeping beauty. So, as she lays under her golden glow, I invite you to close your eyes and listen to the soft swirls of the brushes on her skin as I tell you the tale of a beauty so great. Legends have been written about her dreamlike state. Let's begin. Bliss babies, make sure you watch to the end of the video for bloopers and deleted scenes. Enjoy. Once upon a time, there lived a king and a queen who were very unhappy because they had no children. But at last, a little daughter was born, and their sorrow was turned to joy. All the bells in the land were rung to tell the glad tidings. The king gave a christening, a feast so grand that the like of it had never been known. He invited all the fairies he could find in the kingdom. There were 7 of them, to come to the christening as godmothers. He hoped that each would give the princess a good gift. When the christening was over, the feast came. Before each of the fairies was placed a plate with a spoon, a knife, and a fork, all pure gold. But, alas, as the fairies were about to seat themselves at the table, there came into the hall a very old fairy who had not been seen in many, many years. No one had seen or heard of her in 50 years. The king had not invited her to the feast. The king at once ordered that a plate should be brought before her, but he could not furnish a gold one, such as the others had. This made the old fairy angry, and she sat there muttering to herself. A young fairy who sat near overheard her angry threats. This good godmother, fearing the old fairy might give the child an unlucky gift, hid herself behind a curtain. She did this because she wished to speak last and perhaps be able to change the old fairy's gift. At the end of the feast, the youngest fairy stepped forward and said, "The princess shall be the most beautiful woman in the world." The second said, "She shall have a temper as sweet as an angel." The third said, "She shall have a wonderful grace in all she does or says." The fourth said, "She shall sing like a nightingale." The fifth said, "She shall dance like a flower in the wind." The sixth said, "She shall play such music as was never heard on this earth." Then the old fairy's turn came. Shaking her head spitefully, she said, "When the princess is 17 years old, she shall prick her finger on a spindle, and she shall die. and many of them began to weep. The king and queen wept loudest of all. Just then, the wise young fairy came from behind the curtain and said, "Do not grieve, O king and queen. Your daughter shall not die. I cannot undo what my eldest sister has done. The princess shall indeed prick her finger with the spindle, but she shall not die. She shall fall asleep into the deepest sleep that will last 100 years. At the end of that time, a king's son will find her and awaken her." Immediately, all of the fairies vanished. The king, hoping to save his only child, even from this misfortune, commanded that all spindles should be burned. This was done, but it was all in vain. One day, when the princess was 17 years of age, the king and queen left her alone in the castle. She wandered about the palace, and at last came to a little room in the top of the tower. There was an old woman, so old and deaf that she had never heard of the king's command. She sat spinning. "What are you doing, good old woman?" asked the princess. "I am spinning, pretty child." "Oh," said the princess, "how do you do it? Let me see if I can spin also." She had just taken the spindle in her hand when, in some way, it pricked her finger. The princess dropped down on the floor, and the old woman called for help, and people came from all sides, but nothing could be done. When the good fairy heard the news, she came quickly knew that the princess must sleep 100 years, and would be frightened if she found herself alone when she awoke. So, the fairy touched her with her magic wand, and all in the palace, except the king and queen, ladies, gentlemen, pages, waiting maids, footmen, grooms in the stable, and even the horses. She touched them all, and they all went to sleep just where they were. In a little while, there sprang around the castle a wood so thick that neither man nor beast could pass through. A great many changes take place in 100 years. The king had no other child, and when he died, his throne passed to no other royal family. Even the story of the sleeping princess was almost forgotten. But one day, the son of the king, who now ruled the land, was out hunting, and he saw towers rising above thick wood. He asked what they were, but no one could answer him. At last, an old peasant was found who said, "Your Highness, 50 years ago my father told me there was a castle in that woods where a princess sleeps. Oh, the most beautiful princess that ever lived. It was said that she must sleep there 100 years, when she would be awakened by a king's son." The young prince chuckled to himself, but at this, he determined in his mind to find out the truth for himself. He leaped from his horse and began to force his way through the wood. To his astonishment, the stiff branches gave way and then closed again, allowing none of his companions to follow. A beautiful palace rose before him. In the courtyard, the prince saw horses and men who looked as if they were dead. But he was not afraid and boldly entered the palace. There were guards motionless as stone, gentlemen and ladies, pages and footmen, some standing, some sitting, but all like statues. At last, the prince came to a chamber of gold, where he saw upon a bed the fairest sight one ever beheld. A princess of about 17 years, who looked as if she had prince knelt beside her and awakened her with a kiss. And now the enchantment was broken. The princess looked at him with wondering eyes and said, "Is it you, my prince? I have waited for so long." "No, seriously, like 100 years. What took you so long?" So happy were the two that they talked hour after hour. In the meantime, all in the palace awakened, and each began to do what he was doing when he fell asleep. The prince and the princess were married that very evening, and the next day the prince took his bride to his father's palace, and there they lived, happily ever after.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. You ready? Honey, honey,
Hmm?
are you falling asleep?
Mm-hmm.
We'll try not to. You're making weird noises.
Oh, sorry.
It's
What noises am I
okay.
making?
Come
No,
on.
I'm not.
I'm gonna play it back for you. Put your hand back.
Oh, girl, I'm so. What do I do?
Just lie there and look lovely.
Okay.
Put your hand back. That hand.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's good, girl. Okay. Don't move because your nipple keeps popping up. Close your eyes.